Well,
You.
welcome, Zubaida Salid. She is the lead singer of Siena Root and their new album, Revelation. If not my favorite, it's definitely going to be up there towards the top of the year. It is. It took me by storm. Didn't even know this band, and got the advertisements about the album, and then I went out and bought it, and holy mackerel, it's unbelievable. So welcome, Zubaida, to Progressive Rock Central .com. She has the voice, and I said this in my review. Two of my favorite singers from the '70s, Janis Joplin and Grace Slick. She kind of combines their voice, and it's as if you're hearing both of them, and it's unbelievable. So, welcome, and I'm gonna let you say hi and go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for those nice words. I mean, those are some legends you're talking about, so it's quite the honor to be compared to such big, fantastic voices. It's an honor, really. Thank you for having me.
Well, definitely. Well, describe a little bit how you joined Sienna Root, and then how the band began, emerged, and evolved.
Well, I joined the band back. I guess I did one show with them back in 2018 or 19, I think. And then at the time, the band had a pre-existing structure going on, but the singer at the time, which is one of my good friends, Lisa Lystam, she wasn't like a permanent member. So she wasn't planning on, how do you say it, staying in the band in that type of way. She jumped in because they had some previous issues with some previous vocalists that couldn't join a tour and so on. So she was just, how do you say, renting the spot for the moment. Um, but I started talking to Love quite early when I moved to Stockholm back in 2015, and we were sort of on the same scene. We started seeing each other on like the same shows, and from there it just progressed to like a relationship of, this Swedish blues scene is very small, and that's where I was singing and was mostly active at the time. And then it progressed to them asking me to join the band as first as a vocalist, with the existing lineup that was with Erka that was playing organ before, and Matte Gustafsson that was playing guitar. But then both of them got into other arrangements, and it ended up becoming a discussion of me starting to play keys, which I did a little at the time, but I wasn't, I wasn't really into like the whole playing a proper Hammond. Like I was playing, as somebody said, a little red toy, as in the Nord uh, type of thing. So yeah, that kind of spared the whole journey of me starting to play organ with the band. And here we are now, 2 records and 4 years later, I guess. All
Yeah.
of a sudden.
So the your talk a little bit about your um, roots in Sweden, and how they formed, and how everyone got together.
Well, in short, Samir and Love, they got together, started playing with each other by the end of the 90s. They ended up at the same party, and they started talking about music, and that sort of progressed to them inviting in KG Westman, who played the guitar and the organ and sitar from the beginning. And finally, they released their first record back in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. Um, you'll have to double check this information because I'm not 100% sure, but
You can't remember everything. No one can.
yeah.
Yeah. That's why we have
There's a
Google.
lot of dates
Yeah.
and titles, but it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was really something unique in the way that I know that how Siena came to be was, that the ambition was to create a sound that you love, the old kind of like Black Sabbath or Kiss sound, or Rolling Stones records. It had that specific type of songwriting, and just, sorry, I'm struggling with the English word for this, but in Swedish it's called stilbildande. It defined the time and the era of music in a way. So they were aiming for that, but they weren't succeeding because they were basically doing it, recording the album in a way that was current at the time, and it wasn't coming out sounding the way that they wanted. So they started progressively working towards, recording everything analog, and then starting mixing it analog, and then the production is like, these days, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're one of the few bands that actually does that process still, with the whole mixing analog and recording on tape and so on and so on. So that's how it started. And after a while, they had some issues with finding a lineup that would stick around, which led them into started working with some new people. And at some point they decided Siena Root might be more like a jazz collective, because then it's all about the music, it's not necessarily about the musicians. So that's some of the key points of the beginning of Siena Root, at least I would say. But then of course the passion for like 70s 60s sounding music that's the bottom line, I would say.
All right. You mentioned some bands there. I talked about the two ladies at the beginning, but one of the things that I hear a lot is Traffic, and also, of course, Led Zeppelin. What are some of your other influences? Have you guys listened to early Traffic and that kind of Fairport Prevention?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, for myself, I mean, I have a variety of different. I was raised on like listening to weird ass Bollywood music, and it's not weird at all. But it's my dad's Pakistani, for this who doesn't know that, and so he brought tapes with him with music that was from the 80s that we were listening in the car by the end of the 90s. And I don't know if people are like into to Bollywood music or compositions that's surrounding that type of genre, but it has this, for example, if you listen to like all the strings, it has this, you can find that in like early Town Swan sound records and stuff like that. It has a very specific sound. So I think a lot of my like falling in love with that type of style of music, of course, is a result of my upbringing and the music that my father brought to the table. My mom and him, they listen to, I mean, both like Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd was a big influence for my dad, at least. My mom listened to a lot of electric like orchestra. So so I had those references from there. When I started getting older, I started getting into like more bluesy, rocky sounds. So then, of course, if you don't found Led Zeppelin, then I don't know what path you're walking down, but I did. And of course, Robert Plant is, I think, I mean, it's signature from that era. You can't talk about 70s rock music and not mention Robert Plant, or even blues music from that era, for that matter.
And Jimmy Page.
Yeah, of course, Jimmy Page and Deep Purple, Rainbow, all those bands. I mean, of course, Rainbow had a lot of success maybe during the more later 70s and 80s, I guess, but still that's where I guess it really started to take shape, this whole thing about musical references. But then of course I do love a lot of different type of vocalists. I'm really inspired by a lot of old soul music, like Aretha Franklin, Big Mama Thornton. That's going back even further, of course. That's not from the 70s, but that's when you really dig deep into how this genre even came to be. You realize that it's all these ladies from like the 30s and 40s that just spearheaded the whole thing, really. So I mean, I have a lot of that. Of course, I listened a lot to Janis Joplin. I mean, I have a variety of influences that I really I don't know. I'm taking seeds from here and there.
No, sure. Yeah. All right. It looks like you're doing a Swedish tour right now for Revelation. do you have bigger plans for Europe and the United States for the year, or any festivals stuff
Well,
for this,
actually,
or is it still
we
early?
yeah, we don't have a lot of Swedish dates. Like we actually did a short little Swedish tour now, but we're actually heading out to Germany tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's going to be on the agenda for now. And then we're actually doing a tour with an artist called Rosalie Cunningham. I don't know if you heard her.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she's so we're doing a joint tour in May, as it's looking right now, and then we mostly Europe. I don't think Siena Root has ever been to the US as a band, actually.
I hope you
But
come. Really, yeah,
yeah,
we'd love to have
so do we.
you. Definitely. I
For
think you'd
sure.
sell out quite a few
Yeah.
places, especially on the West Coast, but
Yeah.
I think the East Coast as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, yeah, we would love to, but it's this is it's a band, for example, like I would have to look into finding somebody to rent me an organ that's doable to play, for
Yeah,
example. It's not only like bringing your guitar on the plane, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. No, that there's a lot of work involved for sure. Well, my favorite songs are "Dusty Roads," "Keeper of the Flame," and Manduk Hans. I
Ja, men
hope I
lite
said
snabbt.
that right.
Jag kommer rätt med
Manduk
så.
Hans. I love the sitar, and well, those are my favorites. But do you want to talk about what inspired you to write those songs?
Oh, well, it's a lot of different themes actually that came into play with this album. That's why we also ended up calling it Revelation, because I think every single song has, even though there's some elements musically that tie them together from time to time, it's each song is really revelating in itself, so to
Yes.
speak, theme wise at least. Or it ended up becoming that. I mean, Dusty Road, I really think it's fun that you mentioned Dusty Road, because we've talked a lot about the meaning of specifically that song, and it is actually something that I feel is really the concept that we were aiming for, like talking about a journey that doesn't, when you feel tied to a city and trying to find your way in some type of way, uh, it's really an expression of just trying to leave the concrete jungle behind you and explore something about yourself
Different.
or your own humanity or your feelings. And that's kind of where we ended up. I have there's one line in there that I'm really really proud of, like where it says, like, where are the days of childish ways,
Mm-hmm.
be so far behind me. That thing is like when I remember writing those lyrics and thinking, this is something that every single human being probably experiences at some point, when you, because you define yourself so much with yourself at a young age, and you also I don't know, I just had that sensation of it hitting me. I like it. It's of course you go through several phases in life, but that is something that everybody can attest to. Everybody's been young and everybody's solidified their personality in their young years. So of course, at some point, you're going to be like, when did this disappear? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can say that they handle the experience of aging without questioning that in some type of way. Like, okay, my youth disappeared all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like I was
Yeah.
young one day and the next I was not, apparently, or that is how it felt to me, at least. Yeah.
I love the end of that song too, where you're almost, I don't know the exact words, but you're basically saying, I may, miss out on some things, or I may take this journey and it may not lead where I expect it to, but
Yeah.
at least I tried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I get out of it. Now you tell me, is that, and I was like, gosh, everyone needs to hear that. Give it a
Yeah.
try. get out there. You'll never learn until you try.
Yeah, for sure. No, but I mean, here's the thing. Like, what I think is amazing about lyrics and songs in general is that you take what you want out of it.
Yeah.
And that's the, if you've succeeded as a musician, I think, or as a person that writes lyrics, if you can evoke any type of feeling in people, if it makes them think about the lyrics and what it would mean to them, then you've succeeded so that makes me really happy to hear. And there's no right or wrong in that scenario. Like I love the thought of having people make their own interpretation, of what it means to them. Like that's what I do when I listen to music.
Sure.
So it's.
Well, Stain Grimstead on sitar, and also the flutist, Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever talked about including them as regular members, because they are so fundamental in so many of your albums? Not like I say, I went out and grabbed Revelation right away, but once I got into that, I started looking back into some of your discography, and you start hearing some of that, and it's like, oh my God, where have these guys been? I wish I would have found out about you guys years ago. But have they ever talked about maybe becoming full-time members, or they're too busy, or don't want to be locked into a group? Or
but here's the thing: when Siena Root started expanding as a music collective, which it has been from time to time, one could almost say, is I think what happened is that they encountered a lot of musicians and people in general that some of them really love the music, but they're not interested in touring.
Oh, okay.
For example, or they're, for example, Stian, which is an amazing guitar player, but he's a freelance guy. He loves playing live with us, but he also loves doing a lot of different things. And he was never interested in being like a part of a band in that scenario. But what was really amazing is that they could also use Siena Root as a platform to be expressive within that genre. And I don't know, I don't feel like there's a lot of bands that can do that and still be able to tour in almost whatever shape. But then at the same time, it's also hard to say, because it's come back to bite the band from time to time. Promoters asking like, who's a part of the lineup, and they'll just be like, you'll see when you get there. And they'll be like, they're like, we want to know who's playing, like, so it's a double-edged sword. But I think it's the reason that you have so many varieties when it comes musically, and also to the musicians a part of these records throughout Siena history is because they had the opportunity to work with people and put together records. Because I think a big part of Siena is also the recording process, which not a lot of people see, of course, but it is creating the music and putting it together with other people has always been something, at least for the last 15 years, that's been a part of the band's foundation, for sure.
All right. I just want to go back on two albums, and then we'll come back. The Secret of Our Time. Wonderful title, by the way. And you sang some of the songs. This was one of those transitional albums, right, where it was moving away from one lead female singer to you. And what was that process like? How did you just come in halfway through the recording sessions, or how did that process work?
Well, basically some of the songs that they had been working on was basically half the album at that point when I came into the picture, and they had done a lot of work already together with Lisa. But then I started working with the band, and we started working on some new stuff. So it was one of those things where it just progressed to it becoming a mixed album with both me and Lisa singing on it instead. So it wasn't like proper, like I was there and she was there. It was like we all talked about it, and then I started spitballing some song ideas that I had, and I started working with Love and Samir on it, and then it obviously progressed to becoming The Secret of Our Time, which is, I think it's almost like a 50-50 album, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to the amount of songs that are recorded on there.
Well, for those of you that are new to this band like I am, absolutely check that album out. Daughter of the Mountains, Have No Fear, Imaginary Borders are just unbelievable. You really got to hear them. Dig back into this discography because this band is, I know you're into Revelation, and I am too, but check it out. Another one is Different Realities, and I was just blown away with that second side. The trip that you guys go on to, the road to Argatha, which is just sitar heaven for those people that love the sitar. It's just beautiful. I know you weren't directly involved, but obviously you've heard some of the music, and they play some of it live with you. What do you think of that album? Or
well, I think it's one of Siena Root's absolute best albums, I would say, for sure. It's it really shows the diversity of the band, and it really encompasses that whole, it's not only like a here we are trying to play this Indian sounding style. It's not only incorporated, it's actually the songs are composed out of like working with that type of material. It doesn't sound like it's something that's been how do you say it, like somebody saw an Indian film and then they were like, we're gonna do some type of Indian style music.
No.
It really sounds like they've gotten down to the nitty-gritty of what the music is, and are expressing that in their own version, which I think is amazing. It's an absolutely fantastic album. I think if you're gonna get into Siena Root, that is one of the albums you absolutely have to get through before you skim too much.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I felt like they actually went down there sort of like the Beatles, and engaged in the entire culture and pulled this out and said, we want to make an album like this. I mean, it felt like they made it there. I mean, that real and realities. It really felt real.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry I don't have more details surrounding the whole process, but maybe Sam and Love can fill you in more in an email of some type. But I think it's also like that kind of thing, just I do remember it was like one of those times where they didn't know what to do because they had a vocalist stepping down, and then they just decided, they were like, okay, but let's do a thing, the three of us, let's see if we can find something that works with just the three of us, and that is what came out, and I just think that's amazing.
Yeah. All right. What are some of your favorite inspirations or things to write about, you personally? Because I think you're starting to write more of the lyrics, or I know it's shared between many of you, but well, some of the songs you wrote for this album, what is it that inspires you?
Well, I would say this, most of the album, most of Revelation is a combination of things that were happening to me at the time. So I get a lot of inspiration from my everyday, really, things that happen around me. For example, the Procrastinator was inspired by a time when I got really sick in COVID, actually, in the beginning of 2020. and I was just sitting at home and I couldn't do much. And it just felt I had this combating feeling inside of me, like, am I procrastinating? Am I, like trying to, but I couldn't do anything about it. It was a very weird feeling. So those layers came out of that. Same thing with the single "Coincidence and Fate" that we released. It's mostly about my. I mean, I got really scared when I got sick, so I took a lot of. As it usually is when you write music, you take a lot of inspiration from things that are hard for you. Of course, like I think there's an art to writing a song that sounds happy or has a happy message, actually, because it's, I don't know, it's hard to explain where inspiration for lyrics comes from, but at least when it comes to me, I think take a lot of inspiration from my everyday life and things that happen around me, for sure.
What would you choose as your favorite album or band of all time?
Oh, that's hard to say. I'm
Yeah.
like a huge Frank Zappa fan, so
Yeah.
which doesn't really correlate with like Siena Roots, maybe, but in some ways it does. It has that level of like improvisation, at least as live records does. I don't know. I mean, oh yeah, Frank Zappa for sure. Which album is hard to say, but of course, the Overnight Sensation is a fantastic album. Um, he also has a really early album, which is like Live at Fillmore East. I love that album for some reason. It has some amazing riffs, and also the whole theme of that album, like doing a whole set singing about a band on tour. I don't know. It's something crazy and amazing about it. So I really I'll have to settle for Frank Zappa, but I won't be able to answer the best album of all time.
Okay.
For
It
sure.
sounds like you're interested in progressive rock. Have you ever thought of either with Santa Root or maybe an individual putting together a concept album, a solo project, or
Uh, well, maybe not a solo project per se, but I love experimenting with music, so I'm never opposed to like trying to create something that way. But I mean, I've been trying to tell Sienna Roots for a couple years that we should write a musical because I
oh,
think that would be amazing. Which is basically what an album is, or could be if you wanted to. I really love like these old or like Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. They have some
okay,
amazing, like Jesus Christ Superstar and Hair, and those musicals. I think they're amazing. I think a lot of bands could take an inspiration from doing
yeah,
something like that.
or
Okay.
like a Tommy or Quadrophenia, something like that. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
let's see. And I know it's way early to talk about it, but I'll just ask anyway. Are you guys working on the next album?
We
I mean,
are working on songs right now, mostly loose ideas, but right now we're very focused on the release of this album for
sure.
sure. But we're always continuously working on different song ideas for sure. That's true.
All right. Well, last question. Is there anything else that you would like to mention that I haven't covered?
Uh, well, not that I can think of. I mean, we're doing a show this Friday on a German TV channel called Rockpalast, which is like a legendary TV channel in Germany. I think they're doing a live session as well. So if people want to tune in and watch a live show with some of the new songs, I really think they should. Uh, Other than that, like get the record, I guess.
Please. This
Yeah.
is it's an amazing album. There's not a bad song on well any of the albums that I bought yet, but especially on Revelation. I highly recommend it, and I'm very thankful of you taking time because I know you guys are absolutely busy. I hear in the background rehearsals and
Yeah.
music going on in the background there. So thank you very much. I don't want to keep you any longer, but really,
Don't worry about it. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for having me. And yeah,
definitely.
really great.
Well, Zubaida, I'm a fan. You can count me in. I'm a Siena Root fan, and you guys have a wonderful tour, whatever you're going to be doing, and
Thanks.
I'll keep looking for more. But
All right.
give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn off the recording here. Hold on.
Yep.